Hello, welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. Thank you so much for joining me for today's program. Well, today we're going to continue on in Matthew chapter 19. We're going to finish the discourse on marriage and divorce here that Jesus is talking about, first with the Pharisees and then with his disciples. And we're going to look at Matthew chapter 19, verses 10 through 12 today. And those verses say, "The disciples said to him, 'If such is the case of a man with his wife, is it not expedient to marry?' But he said to them, Not all men can receive this precept, but only those to whom it is given. For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men. And there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. He who is able to receive this, let him receive it." This is a very interesting passage. I think it gets glossed over a lot, especially in regard to the debate of marriage and celibacy. And so here in verse 10, the disciples are they're shocked, they're in awe. And one of the disciples asked, "Is it expedient then? Is it not expedient to marry?" You see, Jesus has just reversed the law of Moses here in regard to the permanence of marriage. So the disciples here are kind of incredulous, if you will. And so they're kind of comparing. Here the disciples are kind of comparing marriage with lifelong virginity or celibacy. So it's kind of interesting there. What about the eunuchs? This is kind of a very interesting passage as well. And of course, remember, this was to Jewish ears, this was very clear. What Jesus was saying here is very clear. And so eunuchs in the East were in charge of the wives of their masters. Okay, they waited on them, etc. And of course, they had sexual temptations as well. And to safeguard against those temptations, eunuchs in the East were either impotent or they were physically castrated. Now, of course, Jesus here is speaking metaphorically, okay? Because he's saying that there are those who embrace celibacy for the sake of the kingdom. And we see that in verse 12. It says, Jesus flat out says, they made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom. And so there are those in ministry, in my case I'm Catholic, so yes, the Roman Catholic Church does have the priestly celibacy rule. There are married Catholic priests as well, those who came from other Christian traditions. That's kind of where this whole concept comes from. They make themselves celibate for the sake of the kingdom. There are Protestant pastors who do this as well. It's not in today's society I think the big shock and awe is because in today's society, if you're not having sex somewhere somehow, you're kind of like what's wrong with you? That's kind of what our society thinks. But Jesus says there are those who have been given that gift who can then use themselves and serve themselves entirely for the kingdom. And Jesus is also saying here that marriage is also a vocation. There are those who are called to marriage in their lifetime. Both are okay. Both are set apart by God for the sake of the kingdom. Because what do you do in marriage? You not only minister to each other, but you're ministering to your children, you're ministering to society. Now, if you're celibate, you're just ministering to society and ministering to other Christians. Both are set aside for the sake of the kingdom. Alright, so that concludes Jesus' teaching on divorce and remarriage, and tomorrow we'll get into Jesus and the little children, which is a beautiful passage as well, one of my favorite ones. Anyway, God bless you. Thank you for joining me in this episode of the Daily Bible Podcast. Hope it was somewhat enlightening. I love doing this show. Just not only do I get something out of it, but I love the emails and messages I get from you all as well. Thank you for your prayers. Please be assured I am also praying for you. Please visit my website at williamhemsworth.com for other articles and resources for you. They're all free. Anyway, God bless you. Have a great day. Take care.